Do you ever find yourself playing out scenarios in your head? Like, you're sitting on the bus daydreaming about what you'd do if some bugs got on and started harassing people. Maybe you have a weapon. Or maybe you are the weapon. But it would not end there. One of the thugs could be the brother of some mad villain who tracks you down and attacks your home. After saving your family, you finally buy the boss's factory.
I'm buying this place.
What?
And booby trap it to lead the villain there for a final showdown alongside your shotgun-wielding grandfather.
This guy stinks!
Sorry about the mess.
What is that?
Unlike my previous video, I'm not going to be making a thorough argument. This is partly because I don't believe there is any subtext to this film.
Because I'm the real article. What you see is what you get.
It's mainly due to the fact that the first note of trivia is that Bob Odenkirk took this project on because he faced a home invasion and had fantasized about how he'd handle it if he were a badass.
That looks pretty badass.
So, case closed.
Come on, man! That's too easy!
I want to briefly discuss my problem with Bob Odenkirk's fantasy film, and that you don't need to be some hotshot karate badass to command respect. So the arc in this film starts with Hutch struggling to live a mundane life surrounded by people who don't respect him, which is a problem that in real life no amount of violence could fix.
George, be reasonable!
This is not to say that I condemn violence. In fact, I applaud Hutch's use of violence throughout this film to keep everyone safe.
Thank you. Violence, violence.
However, using violence won't be the right answer to most problems. Least of all, being disrespected by people in your life, or the feelings of insecurity which may come with that. So, Hutch handled the home invasion by keeping everyone safe.
We don't want any trouble.
Your money.
His son was a fool who made a bad situation a lot worse by trying to handle it like a badass. To put it bluntly, anyone who thinks different is a fool.
I know, let's try and communicate with it.
Who's this? You had to drop on one of those. You know, if that was
Don't
my
you have to
family.
be stupid somewhere else?
Man, I wish they'd have picked my place, you know? Could have used the exercise.
Don't stand too close, Billy. You'll catch it
The old
stupid.
man croaked.
Okay, Mom.
Hutch could have set these people straight with some assertive behaviour.
You being you.
Say that to me again. I'll put your head through the wall.
We see Hutch assert himself, so if he really wanted to command respect in his life, why didn't he?
Who are you? I'm just a man. I was looking for someone.
Yeah, well, you probably shouldn't flash cheese like that around here, bro.
There are three types of people who, as you say, flash cheese. People who are seeking to intimidate people who don't know any better, and people like me.
We're really supposed to believe that this former government assassin corrected his personality to the point of losing the respect of everyone around him.
I might have, overcorrected.
However, why should Hutch even care? If he really was the badass he knew he was. Hutch's frustrations don't make any sense in the film, because they are actually Bob Odenkirk's frustrations with not being a badass. Bob Odenkirk did an incredible job in this action role, but fantasizing about being a badass is a worrying sign. You don't want to end up like Steve McQueen.
What do you say, Fido?
He's like, hey, Rocky, and he does this stupid fucking thing with his hand.
It's almost like, say you were getting a manicure, right? And you wanted to dry off your nails, and he's like, hey, Rocky, and he's doing this stupid fucking thing with his hand.
Who was so insecure about his masculinity that he overcompensated beyond a joke.
But he decided he was going to take Spielberg and I and make us into men that summer. And so he took us to biker bars, and he was into full contact karate, which was just ridiculous. He'd get dressed up in these padded suits with this other guy, and they'd practice all these weird oriental moves, and then they just flail around like two little kids and fall on the floor.
For all his macho man affectations, Steve McQueen was a prissy Hollywood actor, notorious for trying to pull focus in scenes by making stupid little movements.
You look in the back of shop, you don't have to look, your eye is immediately drawn to McQueen, who's fiddling with his hat, doing his nails, doing something.
Would you cut it out?
Whining about anyone else getting higher billing than him.
When he finally had his name first, of course, it was a little higher, but
and generally just wanted to play the coolest characters with the best lines in every film.
Steve never resolved his feelings about his mother, and by extension about women. And he loved and hated them in equal measure.
he was very mistrustful of women, didn't trust not one woman. I was the only woman he really ever trusted. I had had an affair with someone, just to get even with him. And stupidly I told him. And I knew what the reaction would be.
His reaction was to calmly walk into the next room from the bedroom, return holding a gun, which he placed to her head, terrifying Neil, and slapped her around.
When Allie married Steve, she was a huge star. And by the time that marriage was over, really, she didn't have a career. And I think he went systematically about destroying her career. I think maybe to get even with women. I don't know what the reason was.
There's a bit where he gets out of the car and he smacks Ali McGraw. And he really smacks her, you know? There's a kind of comes back to him and he's like that. With not with his hand like this, but with his hand like that. And you think, oh my God. You just, you know, it's a weird thing, but you still go along with him.
I'd be remiss not to also mention the draft dodger, John the Duke Wayne.
His name was Marion Morrison. John Wayne's a fake name. He also shirked World War II, then pretended to fight in it bravely, which makes him, in my book, a jerk.
Your country needs you. What are you going to do about it?
John Wayne spent the entirety of the war years in Hollywood. Since many male movie stars had enlisted, he acted in no less than 13 films during the war, and he got many roles that in other circumstances he might not have been offered.
John Ford rode him mercilessly, particularly on the set of They Were Expendable, his World War II film made just after the war was over. He was so cruel to John Wayne and said, you don't even know how to salute. You didn't serve in the war, unlike other of his friends who had served. So as badly as John Wayne felt, John Ford made it so much worse by humiliating him and criticizing him publicly for not having served in the Second World War.
In the post-war years, while he was performing his greatest roles, John Wayne began to overcompensate and to devote himself to the cause of the American military. The bravery that Duke Morrison never showed in real life became John Wayne's trademark on the screen. The battles he never fought were reenacted in his movies.
The Defense Department has asked me to help bring you this story of Vietnam.
You have this childhood icon that you kind of put on a pedestal, and he turns out to be a jerk, an idiot, a stupid, a propagandist, a guy who's presenting the American war in Vietnam in a way that I knew when I was 20 years old was complete bullshit.
It's like when I was wearing a uniform.
Bob Odenkirk doesn't need to fantasize about being some badass John Wayne type, because in real life he's faced 2 home invasions and managed to keep everyone safe, like a hero.
to a New Yorker like you, a hero is some type of weird sandwich.
Steve McQueen or John Wayne or some badass in the same situation would have only caused some horrendous tragedy.
And he was into full contact karate, which was just ridiculous. He'd just flail around like two little kids and fall on the floor.
What happened to say cheese? Cheese!
So, Castaway video didn't get any views for the first 5 months.
Holy Jesus. What is that?
And I'm not sure if this video is as strong as that one. So, if you liked this one and you want to see more, please like the video to give the algorithm a little push. Finally, thank you to everyone who left such positive comments on the Castaway video.
You princes of Maine, you kings of New England.
Until next week, please don't do anything that we wouldn't do, would you? And if you don't do it, don't enjoy it, something.